All right. Welcome, everybody. James Schiltz here with Growers Mineral Company and Luke Griffith from Morris, Minnesota. Luke, welcome to the team here and welcome back to Milan, Ohio. Will you give us a little background to what you do and where you're from?
Yeah, I guess I grew up in Morris, Minnesota. My dad, my brother farm there. I do agronomy work, and one of the things that that kind of interests me as an agronomist, as like say my goal is to keep the next generation on the farm.
Nice.
And that's sometimes we have these other solutions like buy more land that's expensive, or spend more money and get more bushels. Kind of seem like not necessarily always the most sustainable things in agriculture to stabilize communities and schools and keep it so the land can go to the next generation.
Oh, for sure. No, that's critical in agriculture right now. As the average farmer's over 60 years old, very important. Really growing the farmer is the important crop. So you mentioned that you're an agronomist, so would you tell us a little what your company looks like and what you do there?
Well, primarily I monitor fields in the summer and tell people, drive four-wheeler in the fields where you can, and then walk them after that and tell people what's going on and how to improve their crop or what.
So you're crop scouting for growers?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I'm independent. I have like 14, 15 customers or whatever, and I
Great.
kind of have a weekly schedule. I typically check fields once a week, but, sometimes there's weather.
Sure,
it doesn't always
certainly
work that way, but
And you're in west central Minnesota?
yes.
Okay, so pretty heavy soil types, etc.
Yeah, it kind of varies. In western Minnesota, you have there's a continental divide there where a little bit to the north of me, 20, 30 miles, the water flows north toward the River Valley, and then, my water goes to the Gulf of Mexico yet, but kind of different
Gotcha.
soil types. There's some
Okay.
sandy stuff too, but it varies quite a little bit. But you get into the Red River Valley, it gets very flat and not very well drained.
Sure, very heavy soil type. So how long have you been familiar with the Growers Mineral Company?
I would say maybe as early as 2009, 2010. I'm not real sure.
Okay.
But I kind of somebody talked, the late David McIvers, who talked me into it or to going or whatever. I was kind of thinking was what I was thinking, but
Sure, you weren't really a fan to start with.
well, I just didn't seem like it made sense. But then I got here and I heard this Hall bison, and he just had way too much stuff that, it kind of contradicted some of my education or whatever.
Sure,
but,
especially on the whole calcium subject, right?
well, and just in general, but he left and he said, "You prove me right or prove me wrong," and I didn't think the guy was lying to me. So
Nice.
So
Well done.
we've been doing that on our farm. We've probably been trying to find where Jim Holbison's wrong for 15 years now, and I got him. I found him wrong once. He told me not to foliar feed my oats because we were too late, and we did, and we definitely had a response. The oats responded. So
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I did catch him once.
Good job.
I
Good
did
job. You're
catch
on your
him.
toes in agronomist.
I did.
That's good. You took me to a farm this summer with Jim and Chris as well. I think a fairly long-term customer that's been heavy lime applier, so really prioritizes calcium in his operation and opening that soil structure up for good aggregate stability and porosity. Really means more oxygen. Will you tell me more about that farm? I think we were in the soybean field across from the grain bins.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's one of my better growers. He has the program figured out. In my opinion, he has the best soil sampling methodology there is. Just don't do them. If the field isn't very good, you put 6 ton of lime on it, and then you're good.
Sure.
And it seems to work every time in all weather conditions.
And he also took us to a field of just beans, and then he took us to a field where they must have chopped. Was it chopped oats off?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then planted beans?
Yep.
Can we talk about that scenario? Because I remember pretty drastic differences there.
I think it had about a 2-month planting date difference. And
After the oats came off was 2 months later than just the soybeans being planted.
yeah, and the earlier beans we were looking at, they were planted pretty early, like corn planting time.
Sure.
Plenty on the early end, but and that was one of my few customers that had good beans this year. Most people did not have good beans, but where he limed, the beans were good.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
He had 1 or 2 fields that were rented that hadn't been limed, and the beans were not very good.
Fair enough. Not sufficient calcium to get that legume to nodulate and really move nutrients into those pods.
And there was a really wet spring where we were at. I mean, it rained a lot, and not, multiple times a week and whatever. And when people went to combine beans this fall, they were very surprised because they were not very good. And when people were combining, they couldn't tell what was from excess water and what was drouthy. You really couldn't tell by looking at the bean plant in some areas. Obviously, some places where the plants were gone, you knew it was from drowned out, but the drought happened in the wet areas. And as soon as it
Okay.
quit raining, it got dry. And it got drier a lot faster than you thought it could have.
Now, that field that had oats on it that were chopped off, that was pretty interesting to see that more biological activity. So we know oats foster an environment of heavy enzyme activity, solubilizing phosphorus, just feeding soil biology beneficially. It was neat to see how the stand was better and were yields pretty even compared to the non-oats cover crop.
I think they were right up there. But
Plus, there was a whole nother crop taken off.
right. But oats to me is, as far as people talk single species, and I'm no cover crop expert, but it seems like oats to me has the highest rotation value of any single crop I've seen. It just does stuff to the soil.
When you see a lot of rye used in the industry and you're really not building biology the same. If anything, you're suppressing weeds, you are building carbon, but you're just not fostering microbiology like you are with some others.
Yeah, I think in my experience, oats just does it.
That's great to hear.
I mean, it. Some people consider that planting oats. I mean, even if it's hardly get any monetary value out of it if you don't have a market for it. But
Sure.
your crop following that, and this same customer had a really good experience with corn the year before that, and it was about 100 bushel difference on corn where the oats were and where he didn't have corn.
Really, 100 bushel difference.
Yes, it was.
Wow.
And it was really dry the year before too, but where the oats were, it looked like it never suffered of water at all. And it always seems, from appearance to me, where I've had experience, you always end up with nitrogen after oats. I know it's a grass crop, but it just seems like it has that nitrogen environment, similar to going on alfalfa ground.
Yeah, because you get the die off of those roots, et cetera. And you're not talking about taking oats to grain in the soybean environment. Those were going to forage, weren't they?
Right, but this other one was a grain field.
So the previous year, there were oats that were taken off and then just left fallow, or was there cover crop?
I take that back. I think he baled it as oat hay. and fed
Okay.
it to his cattle. And then maybe he had some covers after that.
Okay, so that was baled off forage and then into corn.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Something
way less carbon above ground, but the root die off below ground we fostered biology. We die off of biological colony.
It was some pretty remarkable corn, and it was not a good year.
It's good to hear. Wow. All right. Any other thoughts from western Minnesota, North Dakota?
Well, I guess I'm out sales sampling, and a few people hire me to do that. And, there's places you can't stick the soil probe in the ground by hand. And,
Sure.
That's kind of another indicator to me. Well, what's your root doing there?
Yeah. The root's certainly not going to penetrate well if the soil probe won't.
Right. So, that tells that tells me quite a bit, even before I get the lab test back. That's...
Yeah, just looking and feeling at that soil, you can really see how the health and the condition is. Yeah, those are great indicators, and really roots and fostering a healthy environment does that, building that calcium level and keeping cover crops in rotation instead of just mining, we're giving back to that soil. Oh, great. Well, glad you came all the way here to Milan, Ohio. That was a how many hour drive?
I think it'd be about 14, 15 hours.
Wow, thanks for making that trek. That's quite
It
the
was
hike.
worth it. I learned more here in 2 days than I would have in 4 years of school. I don't know.
Yeah, no, really, we do have quite a different thinking crowd here that biological diversity, crop diversity, different operations. It just really is a collection of minds that are innovative thinkers. So,
Yeah, quite a network of people that have done it.
yeah, no, that's true. Definitely done it. And, well, keep up the good work there, Luke, helping farmers grow and also growing that next generation. So, yeah, the next generation of farmers is important.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Have a good one.
This podcast has been brought to you by Growers Mineral. Please visit growersmineral.com.